You know, it's interesting how people put Orthodox Christians like Jim Bob on a pedestal, thinking they're somehow superior to atheists. But Jim Bob isn't above anyone. He plays the same games. He lies, dodges, and acts untouchable just because he's Orthodox. Lately, he and his crew have been targeting Mormons. I corrected him. And what does he do? He calls me a Mormon. That's not an argument, that's a dodge. It's the same thing atheists do when they say, I'm not making claims. Yeah, you are. You just don't want to defend them. Jim Bob keeps saying internal critique like it's a magic shield. But internal critiques apply everywhere, not just to others. If your critique is based on logic, it's universal. Non-contradiction, identity, excluded middle, those aren't optional. If they weren't universal, internal critiques wouldn't even work. So no, Jim Bob doesn't get to hide behind orthodoxy while using atheist debate tricks. If you're going to argue, argue honestly. Don't throw genetic fallacies just to avoid being wrong. If someone says, Church X is false because it contradicts principle P, but their own church contradicts P, that's inconsistent, period. Someone said the Old Testament was corrupted around 600 BC during the Deuteronomist reforms. I'm not going to assume he's a Mormon just because he said something that seems to defend them. That's what Jim Bob does. His response was, then you don't believe Mormon theology and you deny the authority of the apostles. Game over. But that commits two logical fallacies, non-sequitur and a category error. The original claim is about the Hebrew Bible being edited in 600 BC. And then Jim Bob hilariously jumps to, therefore you deny Mormon theology and apostolic authority. There's no direct link between believing the Old Testament was edited and rejecting apostolic authority. You can believe the Old Testament had corruption pre-Christ and still believe the apostles had genuine authority later. OT edits in 600 BC don't touch apostolic authority in 30 AD. Different era, different source of authority. So no, that's not game over, that's just a category error. The apostles lived in a world with multiple Jewish textual traditions, not a single unified one. Early Christians knew there were various versions and edits before Jesus. Recognizing pre-Christian textual change doesn't reject Christian authority. It's historically normal. Orthodox Christians reject books older than the apostles, like Enoch and Jubilees, and that doesn't undermine apostolic authority. Claiming early textual corruption equals no apostles doesn't follow. It's not logically consistent. So what does Jim Bob do? He puts up his internal critique shield and makes a false claim that it doesn't apply to other systems. Pointing to his own orthodoxy shows the flaw. Orthodox Christians acknowledge older texts, yet still hold apostolic authority. The existence of earlier texts doesn't automatically undermine the apostles. In short, Jim Bob is overgeneralizing. He treats any textual corruption as a total collapse of apostolic authority, which isn't logically consistent. You can recognize early corruption and still affirm the apostles. Jim Bob then tried to clarify what he meant, but he was wrong about that too. He said this is about Mormonism and its claim that the church went silent 100 AD, which is not something Mormons claim. After pointing out his mistake, my comments disappeared, so here I am rebutting him. For someone who threatened to block me almost immediately, maybe that's evidence he deletes comments too. Jim Bob continues to tell lies about the Mormon religion after being corrected. I've watched his videos and there's not much he gets right about Mormonism. A lot of it is sadly fabricated. Alright, let's clear something up about Jim Bob's argument. He thinks that for the apostles to have priesthood authority, every scripture had to be perfect and untouched. That's not how LDS doctrine works, folks. The church doesn't require pure, unedited scripture transmission, or that there's been zero doctrinal development over time. Changes before Christ? Totally irrelevant to apostolic authority. Jim Bob's mixing categories here. He's confusing biblical textual history with priesthood keys. Text history affects biblical transmission, not who held authority. The church teaches that errors entered the Bible during its transmission. It doesn't say corruption only began after the apostles. The restored gospel didn't undergo the same changes as the Bible. The Great Apostasy was a process, not a single event right after the apostles. Corruption in doctrine and ordinances happened over centuries, not just immediately after. Loss of gospel parts happened from the time of Christ, not just after the apostles. The church doesn't pinpoint the apostasy to exactly 100 AD. it acknowledges a gradual decline. Don't believe me? Here are sources from the Church History Manual, Church History, 2012 edition. The change from truth to error in the church did not take place in a day. The apostasy, hastened by the death of the apostles in the latter half of the 1st century, gradually deepened during the years that followed. Church of Jesus Christ. This clearly states that the apostasy is gradual over years, not an instantaneous event. LDS scholarship on plain and precious things, from the Religious Studies Center, RSC publication, changes in doctrine by various sects and councils after the time of Christ and his apostles, together with translations and retranslations of the Bible from the time of Christ to the present, resulted in parts of the gospel being lost. This explicitly states that translations and retranslations from the time of Christ to the present led to loss. What this implies is that scriptural corruption or loss is not described as only after the apostles and before the Bible's compile date. It includes the period from the time of Christ. So what does Jimmy do? He argues as if mystery in a religion is a bad thing. Hilarious. Since his own has some of the worst mysteries, and they admit it.
So it's okay for Orthodoxy to have mysteries?
Sure, mysteries! Perfectly fine.
But Mormonism can't?
Nope, that's dumb.
So defending a religion makes you religious?
Oh, of course it does.
If God is logic, then truth can't contradict reason.
So how do we vote in new doctrines? That breaks logic!
Tonight's discussion, where does everything come from?
Simple question.
Yeah, but it's a big one. You got an answer?
Of course, everything comes from somewhere.
I could have told you that. Where's the
Everywhere.
somewhere? If it's everywhere, how do you know where it starts?
Wherever you first
Then I noticed it here. That mean I'm...
So
God made everything out of nothing.
Right.
But if nothing is something, then it ain't nothing.
Exactly.
So he made everything out of something.
No, nothing.
Then that's something.
Exactly. I give up!
All Jimmy has as evidence of my Mormonism is my correcting him on it. Let's see how his comically bad logic plays out in real life.
Wait, aren't you a Democrat? Why are you voting Republican?
I said one time that Trump wasn't literally Hitler, and now I'm apparently a Republican forever. This is my life now.
Upbeat, over-the-top political...
Please send help.
Surprisingly, actually, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton came out and gave President Trump credit. Listen here.
It's a really significant first step, and I really commend President Trump and his administration, as well as Arab leaders in the region, for making the commitment to the 20-point plan and seeing a path forward for what's often called the day after.
Griff, how much of this,
They just praise the leader? Yep, totally. Not AI, it's legit TV.
So if defending one religion makes you part of it, does praising a leader make you a super supporter?
Absolutely. Logical consistency is everything, just ask Jim Bob.
I can hear you Orthodox babies coping now. It wouldn't even matter if I were a Mormon. It wouldn't even matter if Mormonism were false. It wouldn't make Jimmy correct. And I wouldn't be wrong because I was a Mormon. That's a genetic fallacy. So enjoy living in your lies.
Thanks for lying for your Jesus.
If someone said Muhammad was a woman, do you correct them?
Of course not.
What about you? If someone said Muhammad was a woman, do you correct them?
Of course I do!
Congratulations, you are now a Muslim.
Yes! Woo! Oh, that's great!